You're listening to WMPG 90.9 Gorham, Portland, Southern Maine Community Radio from USM. Live from the Orion Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, this is Scientifically Speaking, a weekly half-hour program devoted to elegant curiosities, and I am one of your hosts, Sarah Chang, and joining me, as always, is Bernie Rhyme, DJ Star Watcher. How are you, Bernie?
Yes, hi Sarah, very good, thank you.
Bernie is our professor of the astronomy lab at USM and our local protector of the night skies. Reach out to us at WMPG Scientifically Speaking at gmail.com or on Twitter at WMPG SciSpeak. And you can head on over to WMPG.org to find the last 5 weeks of archives of all of your favorite shows, including this one. Bernie, could you let our listeners know what is up in the night sky for this coming week?
Yes, certainly, Sarah. Okay, so today will be Friday, October 1st. So basically, we're going to have a waning crescent moon just after last quarter. So it's going to come up just after midnight. We're about a week into fall, so the days are less than 12 hours long now. Sunrise is about 6:40 in the morning, sets about 6:23 in the evening, so you're definitely noticing the days getting shorter. Jupiter and Saturn are still our evening planets. Saturn actually comes up first, but it's 15 times fainter than Jupiter, so you probably won't be able to see it till after you see Jupiter. They're both going to end their retrograde motion this month, so they're going to be going normal eastward direction again. Venus still sets before 8 p.m. and Mars hasn't been around for a while, so you can't see that. So basically, I mean, that's it. New moon will be on October 6th, so the moon really won't be in the way, so you can see some neat things in the night sky the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
And if you couldn't take notes quite fast enough, you can also check out the monthly What's Up column in the Portland Press Herald, written by yours truly. Bernie, could you introduce our special guest for today's show?
Yes, certainly. So today we have Peter Gillette. I first met him at our annual Astronomy Star Fest that we have every September at the observatory we built over 20 years ago. And then he joined us in Zoom, so I've seen a little bit more of him, and we just had the club. He was also always an excellent astrophotographer. I also met him several times at the Stellafane conventions in Vermont, and he'll tell us a little bit more about him. Go ahead. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thanks, Bernie and Sarah. Nice to meet you both. Or
Nice
actually,
to
meet Sarah. Anyway.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. I'm an astronomer only in amateur sense. I've been interested in astronomy and the night sky. Well, really, I can blame my grandfather back when I was about 5 years old to have bent the twig for me, so to speak. He would drag me out into the night and start pointing out constellations, and somehow it caught hold, and I have been interested in whatever fashion I found my life would allow me to be interested for most years ever since. I now have I'm actually on my third observatory that I have built myself, being a daytime person in construction has made it that much easier for me to do such things. And I have designed and engineered and built now a fair number of observatories around the area, including my current one, which is 10 by 13 with a roll-off roof.
Wow.
In it I have a 12-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain and a 5-inch refractor that I put together.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Do you, since you mentioned that your granddad had pointed out constellations, what do you have a favorite constellation?
Oh gosh, well, everyone loves Orion. And that's certainly the one that I most remember my grandfather pointing out, because it's certainly an easy one for people to see. As far as other favorites, I've always liked Delphinus, the dolphin, as one of my favorites. The Sagittarius teapot is another pleasure for me to see, given the time of year, I suppose, as much as anything. But they're all over the place. Yeah. All good fun, and it's such a joy finding that as the seasons change, so do the constellations we get to enjoy.
Yeah. So you have 3 observatories
I have one current.
Oh, okay. So you've created and then you've rebuilt or
Yeah.
gotcha.
Improved or moved or whatever.
And is your observatory, is it stationary or is it mobile?
Oh, it's very stationary.
It's
It's
very stationary.
yeah, yeah. I've actually had a thought in the back of my head for many years now to build a portable roll around observatory and just visit state parks and national parks all over the country and just stop in at the gate and say, "This is what I've got. Do you think people would be interested?"
Yeah, John Dobson did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as sidewalk astronomers,
Yeah.
of course, out of San Francisco have done that for years, years and years.
Yeah, it's a good idea because now more parks are having the dark sky part of it.
Absolutely.
Daytime, and they're also expanding on the dark side part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that.
So recently I had attended the Star Festival that your club was hosting a couple weeks back, and I do have to ask, are you a traditional astronomer in the sense of you search for things yourself, or do you have digital helpers?
The go-to versus star hopping question. I certainly started off with star hopping and am a proponent of it. Anytime that someone asks me, what should I get? I want to get into astronomy. What should I get? I want a telescope. I want a big telescope. and I'm sure, Bernie, you run across this, Sarah. I don't know if you do too, but my stock answer has typically been get a good set of binoculars. 7x50 is perfect, and get a subscription to astronomy or Sky and Telescope, something along those lines, and start there. Learn your way around the night sky so you can see the constellations yourself.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll figure out whether it's really something you want to get into further, and if so, to what extent.
Yeah, I've actually I don't own a pair of binoculars myself, but I have heard others say that with a decent pair of binoculars they can see just as well as like pretty standard telescope, if better.
I wouldn't say that.
That's what I've heard from some people. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's more portable.
Yeah, well, it is that. And certainly more it can be used more diversely, of course. Birding, yes. another one of my hobbies or passions. So binoculars are huge for something like that.
Yep, for true.
Yeah.
So then what inspired you to want to shoot the night sky, and when did you start doing that?
Oh gosh. Well, it took quite a while before I actually wanted to explore that avenue. What really got me, I started in one of my previous observatories. I had acquired an 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain, and I wanted to photograph some of the things that I was seeing through it. But of course, the cameras of the day were all film-based cameras.
So you've been at this for a while.
A while, not as long as many of my friends and compatriots, but for a while indeed. But I found that in order to be at all successful with a film-based camera involved probably having a chiropractor as a really good friend as well, because the only way to accurately follow the night sky, even on a tracking telescope, was to use what's called an off-axis guider, where you're looking at a tiny little bit of the view that the telescope is producing and trying to keep track of one particular star and hold its position in the telescopic view while the camera is photographing a much larger or different area of the sky. And it seemed as though in order to access a star bright enough to keep track of involved typically having to turn on my side, tip my neck at some awful angle, and hold that position for long enough to take a decent photograph, which with film would mean 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes for one frame. And if you try and stand up, tip to one side, hold your head down sideways, so sort of upside down, perfectly still for 20 minutes, I guarantee you a chiropractor is going to become your best friend. So what I ended up doing was I said, my gosh, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And this was back in the day of the earliest of the surveillance cameras, the little video cameras and little board cameras that were coming out for things like, oh gosh, well, they were doing webcams, they were doing little nanny cams and super secret spy cams and stuff like that, but they were all just simple video based. And I ended up realizing, my gosh, you know, I almost think maybe one of those cameras, instead of me, could be presenting a view for me to guide on by simply presenting the video stream image to a monitor screen, a TV screen, and just take a little erasable marker and put a dot right over a star.
Genius.
And then just keep running the controls to hold that spot. It ended up working so well that I forgot about taking pictures and just started exploring what these little video cameras could really do on their own.
Huh.
And as I got deeper into it, the camera technology kept improving as well. And now the video cameras that are available for putting into a telescope are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. So I have continued to push the video boundaries for astro imaging, and now they've even given it a name, which is electronically enhanced astronomy.
Huh.
And it's become a thing.
Wow. That's
it's a
well,
roundabout way.
Yeah, no, but that's a genius way to kind of save your back,
Sure.
but also, to help, utilize this technology for this purpose.
Yeah.
What was the first, were you looking at specific objects to shoot, I'm assuming, or?
Oh, for sure. You start off with the biggest and the brightest, the easiest,
the moon,
that take the least amount of time. Well, yeah, for sure. Actually, for sure, the moon.
That is the biggest and the brightest.
Yeah, truly it is. Or the sun, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I also have been doing. So there's that. But you get into the Orion Nebula is of course brilliant. You start getting into the planets, the larger ones like Jupiter, where there are actually some features, some details that you can resolve. And of course, the brighter things like globular clusters, open star clusters, that sort of thing, all became parts of what I would pick and choose from.
What was the first object that you successfully photographed and were just like, wow?
Oh, well, I think I can name that one, actually. I was up in my first observatory, which was I think it was about an 8x8 or a 6x6 room that I built on the roof of my house. And up there, I actually started with a I think it was about a 4-inch reflector, and then found a deal on the 8-inch telescope, 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain. But I also had a film-based camera that used a telephoto lens, and I happened to be up there during a lunar eclipse, which I started photographing, and didn't really even, I mean, I knew what I was doing enough to say, okay, yeah, that's in focus, and I think I've got the exposure right and stuff like that. But what I didn't really realize was that the sky where this eclipse was taking place had some clouds in it drifting through. And of course, this was all film-based, so I didn't get to see what I was actually getting for photographs until I took the film to the local shop and had the prints come back. And as I stood in the shop, opening the envelope and starting to pull out the prints and go through them, my jaw just dropped, because I had captured images of this incredible brick red moon with a halo cap over just the brightest part of it that was just absolutely jaw-dropping incredible. And I'm sure that sealed the deal as far as me wanting to take this further.
Wow.
It was fantastic.
I don't think I was expecting like an event. I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, I probably took a photo of Mars and it was really great. But no, you
Mars is
captured
hard.
a moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
No, life is
Some
like
of my
that.
best early pictures were also of lunar eclipses.
Oh,
In the old days of
fantastic.
films, I can identify with that. So you never really
Absolutely.
knew, but I would bracket everything, and I'd get some really
Right.
good ones, and I make composites of them afterwards.
Yep,
It's a good way to start before all the CCD stuff we can do now.
absolutely.
That would definitely get you hooked, because an eclipse is amazing to see, but so you
Right,
can share it with someone else with these pictures
right.
is really great. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Have
Good
you
stuff.
tried to photograph more eclipses since?
Oh, absolutely. The eclipse that traveled across the country
Yep.
from Washington State down through South Carolina.
Where did
I
you go?
I went to it. This is another story. Caution. I drove solo down to South Carolina
Okay.
and set up. I didn't know quite where I was going to set up. I just I have a dear friend down there who I was able to crash at the day before, and then do a little reconnoiter around the area. And I ended up finding a tiny little state park right on the South Carolina coast, just north of Charleston. And I decided, okay, that's where I'm gonna go. Got up way early the next morning and drove back up there. I was about the 8th car pulled over on the shoulder of the highway to get into the state park, which ended up getting pretty stuffed full of people.
Wow.
But as it turned out, I was the only one there with a telescope.
Wow.
And there was this large parking area, all grassy parking area, back away from the shoreline, and everyone wanted to go over to the coast, over to the beach. But I had an 8-inch telescope and recording gear and camera gear, and I knew it was going to be, a multi-hour event. So it was hot, and I didn't really want to lug everything all the way over to set it up in the sand.
Yeah.
So I talked to the rangers that were there, keeping people, parking in the proper places and such. And I said, look, can I just set up here right next to my car or my van? I really don't want to carry stuff all the way over. and it would be multiple trips where I'd just have stuff sitting there in the sand, completely unattended. And they said, yeah, sure. Well, I ended up with a crowd of people because of the setup that I had created, which included monitors that would show what the cameras and the telescope were seeing. I ended up with a crowd of people coming by all through the event, and just by the end of the eclipse, I had 3 park rangers there. and I had people literally from all over the world had stopped by. I had a notebook that I was keeping track of things on. I had 3 pages full of nothing but people's names and addresses, how to contact them, and would I please send them pictures.
I was gonna say, was that like a guest sign-in log?
It became that, and now I actually have a set of the eclipse shots hanging in the office building of the state park facility there as well.
Wow.
So it was pretty. Oh, and to top it all off, during the totality of the eclipse,
Yeah,
I knew, because for a while, for a fair number of years, I lived in Florida. And living in Florida, spending a lot of time during high school over on the beach, you know what the weather patterns are like. And around the south, mid-afternoon, you get thunderstorms, except along the beach, along the coastlines. There's a change in the climate there, and the storms stay inland. So that's why I chose going to a coastal site to dodge that. And it worked better than I ever could have hoped, because during totality, a monstrous thunderstorm had developed and was rolling down through Charleston. And I was just north of Charleston and on the coast. And during totality, I had Bailey's beads and the diamond ring and the little patterns going across the ground. And behind me during totality, I had lightning and thunder pealing.
Wow.
Just inland from me. It was just, you can't just buy that. You can't make that happen. It was just there. And
wow.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Damn, that is way more dramatic than Bernie or I's experience.
Mine were just perfect for 3 whole weeks, not a cloud in the sky. But yeah,
that's so funny. Yeah, because I was going to go down to South Carolina, but I saw the weather and I was like, oh, I don't want to drive 17 hours. And I ended up going to, where did I go? Indiana or Illinois? Yeah, Illinois.
Yeah.
And then Bernie went up to the Grand Teton.
Idaho.
Oh, yeah.
Idaho.
Sweet.
But we did not have, I didn't have any setup. So you were like, you had your own security with the Rangers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was fantastic.
People gathering in.
Yeah. It was great.
Amazing. So, okay. So you've talked about your 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain telescope.
Yes.
Let's talk about your other specs. Like, what does it take to go from camera, clear sky, no moon, good seeing, telescope, to your beautiful images?
Well, I certainly have many friends who are much deeper into astrophotography and spend hours and hours and hours on the computer working with the images that they take. That's not me. I'm too busy to spend that kind of time staring at a computer and tweaking images. So I look for ways to have it be kind of a one-shot deal, or maybe just a few shots, maybe. So I've found a camera, and this is a camera that people really need to know about. It's the Canon Powershot SX50, and It's a little bit out of production now. They've gone 2 or 3 or 4 iterations beyond it now. I don't know if they're as good, but this camera is what's called a bridge camera. It uses it has a single lens system on the front of it, but the lens system is incredibly flexible. It allows me to have the equivalent of a 35 millimeter typical digital SLR with a camera with a lens ranging from a 28 millimeter ultra wide field big view lens that gives me a huge section of the Milky Way and beautiful nightscape type photographs, and but the lens will also flex all the way through to a 1200 millimeter telephoto lens.
Wow.
1200 millimeters. That's like a serious telescope.
Wait, where does it start? The
28.
28 wide angle.
Okay.
28 to
Pretty
1200,
good.
and that is strictly optical. That's not some sort of an electronic hoop-de-doo, only using the center of the chip kind of thing if you're
Right.
getting into the technical part of it. But it's also optically image stabilized. So for daytime work, I can do birding with this camera, and I can hand hold a 1200 millimeter telephoto lens that will give me shots of birds that are, a football field away and identify them easily. Handheld, not on a tripod, I don't have to carry anything with me other than this camera.
Yeah.
But at
Wow.
night, what I do is I typically what's called piggyback. I'll have one of my telescopes set up that's set up to be able to track the night sky, and I'll have the camera mounted on top of the telescope, not looking through an eyepiece, just using its own optics, but using the telescope as a tracking, guiding base. And then I can frame the photograph based on the size of the object. If I want to catch all of the Milky Way, well, not all of the Milky Way, but a big chunk of the Milky Way, I set it at 28 millimeters. If I want to do the moon, I can zoom in to fill the frame with the moon. If I want to do a deep sky photograph, photographing something that's particularly faint, it turns out that some very smart people somewhere else, I think some of them are in Germany, hackers by another name, have come up with a means of accessing the internal software or firmware, as it's called, of the camera, and allow one to gain access to controls of the shutter and the exposure rates and things like that, the sensitivity of the camera, quite manually, so that I can literally do a 60-minute exposure on this camera if I want to, which puts me into incredibly deep sky. I can photograph galaxies and nebulae with just this camera, no other optics, no extra complications, and come up with photographs that are totally right out there as far
Hubble
as
Space Telescope worthy.
Well, you gotta well, of course, Hubble actually uses their own set of filters, and they colorize their images to whatever pleases them, whereas this camera has its own, parameters, shall we say.
Right.
But I have found that for anyone that's particularly interested, the camera does have a very good red sensitivity, which means that the hydrogen alpha that often creates the red glows that we see, for instance, in the Orion Nebula, it does very, very well without any extra filtration or boosting or anything to pick up the reds that some people have said, oh, you can't get that with a regular, just a regular camera setup. You got to go for the fancy $6,000 dedicated Astro whatever.
You also have some modern techniques that you could just use your own phone to take these photos. What
Yeah,
does that look like for
I
you? What is
I
that setup?
ran I ran across a piece of an app to use the right word, um, called Deep Sky Camera Beta. And this particular odd, quirky little piece of software um, gets in and controls or allows you to control your camera to where it can do a lot of the things that um, very legitimate astrophotographers are doing with their multiple different types of exposures in order to subtract noise from an image and dust from the lens and all that sort of stuff, specifically flat fields and dark frames and light frames and bias frames. This app gives you all that and also allows you to record your files in what's called RAW, which means that the files haven't been adjusted at all and allow you complete access and control of luminance and the different color schemes.
Oh.
So, and also long exposures and multiple exposures and time-lapse exposures, all in this one little package. It's pretty cool.
And is that for Android?
That is for Android.
It's for Android.
Yeah.
All right. Deep Sky Camera Beta. I'll have
Yep.
to check that
That's
out.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely tried some apps many, many years ago that did not work very well. But I'm sure with the newer cameras and better apps that can control them a little bit more.
Better cameras, better
Yeah.
apps. Yeah. I have heard that the this particular app works differently with different cameras, different phones,
Okay,
different.
yeah.
You know, you've got the oh, I don't remember even what they're called, but you know, the different iterations of phones over the years
Yeah.
will have different maximum level or maximum exposures that
Right.
really amount to anything at all. But on my particular camera, which is the Samsung 7, whatever that is, I don't even remember, but it's probably like 3 iterations back from what's brand new these days.
And it does pretty well.
And it does pretty well. It allows me a maximum exposure time of 10 seconds.
Oh.
just to be
cute.
specific.
Yeah. Yeah.
But 10 seconds of exposure with also you can control the sensitivity of the camera, the ISO as it's called, to a remarkable extent. And I took pictures at Starfest this year where somebody walking by with a red headlight on, you'd get a star field, you'd get the observatory in the background, and you'd get a red star track or a light track across the image from somebody just walking by. It's
not
pretty
bad.
Cool. Yeah, really good.
I guess I didn't know what to expect with a maximum exposure rate, but 10 seconds is not bad for
it's not bad.
A little phone.
And in using a device to mount your phone cam behind an eyepiece of a telescope, you'd be shocked. I can photograph galaxies on my phone cam.
Wow.
And they're not bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must share these photos. I'm so intrigued what a photo of a galaxy looks like taken from a little dinky
I know,
phone.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
And these photos as well, you don't do much post-processing, no artistic license or anything is taken to.
Like I said, I don't have the time. I'm a busy guy. I don't have the patience to sit that long.
Yeah.
Much less the time.
Yeah. You're what I think what some Instagram influencers or whatever would say as no filter, right? Because you don't You don't add anything to
Yeah,
it. It's just
right,
raw.
right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the less the better as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your current endeavors? Like, are there certain objects in the night sky that you are trying to photograph, or you've tried to but just haven't been able to be successful? Or is there anything that you just haven't gotten to yet?
Oh, there's there's a whole sky full of stuff I haven't gotten to yet for sure.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you've been at this for a very long time. So,
I suppose, but like I said, I've only been able to do as much as life has allowed, and
yeah.
it's not been until the last, well, probably 20 years now that I've.
Long time.
Yeah, I know. I said this to the wrong person. Bernie, help me out here. But that I've had the time and the wherewithal,
Yeah.
to be able to focus, shall we say.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, what else is on your list then?
Oh gosh, well, right now I'm taking advantage of what's most prominent in the sky right now. I feel like I've just recently made a leap in my photographic capabilities with Jupiter and Saturn. I've tried for quite some time with various camera setups and such, primarily again the video based setups, particularly because they're so fantastic for outreach. Picture a star party where you've got a line of people, one by one, each one wants to stare at something in your eyepiece and not move away because they're mesmerized. And the next person is tapping them on the back saying, hey, it's my turn. With a video-based system, I can put up well, picture your biggest TV screen. I could put up a TV screen and feed a quality video image of things that people can all see at the same time with both eyes at the same time, which also makes a big difference.
I was gonna say, but there's character building in the struggle, of trying to...
for sure. Well, the same can be said for being able to just take your cell phone and hold it up to an eyepiece and instantly walk away with an astrophotograph.
Yeah.
That's
what I've done in the past.
You haven't had the struggle, you haven't had the chiropractor.
Fair. But you have made your setup makes it much more accessible for people.
It does. But I have just recently started working again with a digital SLR and improved or a ratcheted up optical stream. And with that, I have been taking pictures of Jupiter and Saturn lately, and like I had said, I've hit a new level, which has been very exciting. And with them so well placed right now, it's hard to go anywhere else for me. The moon is actually another spot that I frequently find a love-hate relationship with as far as photography is concerned. It's brilliant, it's stark, it's amazing to explore, and I highly recommend the virtual moon atlas as a free program to put on your computer. And if you have the opportunity of a computer guided telescope, it will interface directly with many telescopes and allow you to explore the moon like you have never, ever done because it will guide you through all sorts of different spots, particular features on the moon, and give you detailed information about those features and help you learn your way around the moon
Huh.
while you're looking at it through your telescope. It's phenomenal.
What was the program again?
Virtual Moon Atlas.
Hmm.
It's terrific. Even if you
Yeah.
don't have it hooked up to a telescope, it does a really excellent job of pointing you in direction for features worth exploring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, photographing the moon can be, well, from my perspective, it's very satisfying because there's lots of features there that you can easily resolve. But
absolutely. But I find I start getting into features that are so small and so detailed that the atmospherics get in the way,
ah,
and things start dancing around, and things that to your eye, because of the brilliance of our brains, look very sharp and clear when they're presented to the limitations of a shutter and an imaging chip. They get much softer and blurrier and nowhere near as how you remembered them. So it's there's the hate side of the
yeah.
love hate I have with the moon right now, but it's a joy.
So, on the same topic, what are your tips for kind of the right atmospheric conditions, the right sky, the right whatever that you look for when you decide I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna start taking photos tonight? Or is there something that, like, is there a particular time that you're looking for in terms of conditions?
Well, for me, literally, for me, having an observatory gives me such flexibility. If I see anytime the sky is at all clear, I can I
Just that
can
all
be up
clear.
and I can be up and looking in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think really, if the sky's clear, I want to be out there.
Mm.
And if I'm not photographing, it's because I'm too distracted with just exploring with my eyes.
Hmm.
Um, if I see something that particularly grabs my attention and I think, yeah, I could get some photos of that. Let's see where that goes. That's what I'll do. But as far as studying the web for when the weather is going to be absolutely perfect and the jet stream is going to be in just the right place, and I'd rather just go out and find out what it's doing. Put boots on the ground, put eyes in the sky, and choose what I'm going to do based on what I'm seeing.
I love it. No, I mean that's fair. There's a lot of people who, as beginners, they're always like, tell me like the perfect everything, when the stars are aligned for me to go do something. And your advice, I love your philosophy. Just go out as long as it's not raining, it's not cloudy. Go out and do it.
Well, I'll tell you. Let me put it this way. Particularly with the video cameras that I use these days, and I have one that I can highly recommend called the Revolution Imager 2. It's definitely one to look up. The price point on it is unbelievable. It's compared to so many of the other commercial cameras that are out there that can do less.
Mm-hmm.
This system I first ran across at a NEAF conference a few years ago, and it was one that I ran across after already being pretty well versed in what video cameras were capable of doing at the time.
Mm.
And this one showed up there, and I said, that's where we got to go. And so I sprung for it very, very remarkable price on it, and definitely look them up. Where was I going with that? Was it no, it wasn't the moon. Oh dear.
Just,
Oh, I
getting
know what it
into,
was. The weather.
yes, the weather.
This camera and others that I'd had before it, other versions of video cameras before it, have a remarkable sensitivity into the infrared. And you can ascertain this or prove it to yourself by grabbing the remote control from your TV and pointing it at the camera and pressing any of the buttons. And if you see a little flashlight blinking on the front of your remote control, the camera is actually seeing infrared, because that's what's being used by those remotes to tell your TV what to do. So what I have discovered is, even when the sky is too clouded over for me to see a lot of things like Jupiter or some stars, the camera will still pick them up as if they're just sitting right there in front of you.
Wow.
Yeah. And another thing, I have used some of these video cameras with old SLR camera lenses. Just, cobble together whatever you can. Use it during the daytime to find where the point of focus is for it and all that sort of stuff. But at night, I can remember being at one Star Fest now probably 5 years ago, where we had seen just the briefest little bit of a display of some northern lights. And then it all faded away. And we were all going, oh, gee, that's too bad. But I was looking at my monitor, and my video camera was continuing to see brilliant northern lights. It's just, I'd turn and look up at the sky in the right direction, and it looked like there was nothing there, but the camera was picking it up just fine.
Wow.
So go figure. These cameras, give you reach that will blow your mind. Oh, in fact, I got to tell you, this Revolution Imager, I have an 80 millimeter refractor, a little Orion ST80 short tube Richfield refractor, side mounted to my 12-inch big gun. With the Revolution Imager, only in the 80 millimeter refractor, I get better views of galaxies on my monitor than I can see with my eyes through the 12-inch telescope.
Wow.
No lie. It's absolutely shocking. Pillars of creation. Bernie, were you there 2 years ago when I set up the Revolution Imager in the ASNI Observatory on the finders, on the guide scope?
Yeah.
And
I don't think I saw that one, but I saw Dwight things with the Stellina and they picking up the images. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thing. With the $4,000 Stellina, yeah, okay, right, yeah, all right, go ahead.
Yeah.
This was $250.
Yeah. Right.
And I was doing the Pillars of Creation through the club's finder scope. And literally had 30 people in the observatory screaming.
Screaming.
Yeah. Ian was the loudest. Bernie.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is something that I've wanted to see. And I've when I've gone to Starfest, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, do you think you could, turn the telescope to that? But then I'm like, we're not going to see anything. What's the point?
It's true with your naked eye, but with the video enhancement that's capable now, it's right there waiting for you.
Wow.
And it doesn't take much of a telescope to give it to you. So I highly encourage.
Man, it sounds like nothing can stop you.
Nothing.
Let's put it this way. I'm always looking for new directions to explore. And
That's amazing.
and there's some good ones out there for sure.
Yeah. Do you end up doing anything with your photos, or is it just for you? Sounds like it's all just for you.
It's just for me.
Yeah.
It's just for me. It's me figuring things out. That's basic. I mean, I share photos with people that I think are going to be interested, but as far as, you know, some sort of a marketing thing, that's the same thing with gem faceting. I'm a gem faceter. I cut gems,
It's the
and
process.
but I don't sell. You know, I go out and I find rough crystals and such that or pieces, and I'll bring them back and I'll cut them into absolutely gorgeous gems, but it's not for sale. It's just for the art of doing it,
Yeah.
and maybe for some friends here and there, but
Beautiful. I would love to see some of these, but you know, I totally get it. You don't have a website.
no,
You're not on social media. You're not
no,
sharing these. It's just a process that you've been doing for many years.
yeah, afraid so.
But I think, I mean, you've given a lot of great tips and recommendations from your many years. So I think that's hopefully you've inspired some of our listeners
I
who
hope so.
maybe, yeah. And it sounds like they're not too crazy. Um,
Exactly.
it's all kind of obtainable
Yes,
with a little bit of just a little bit of moolah.
absolutely. Absolutely. It does not have to take much. The investment that you hear about some people putting into some of these
Yeah.
endeavors is, well, some people have time, some people have money.
We hear you. So Bernie, there are some telescopes that we can't obtain though.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of share with our listeners
Yes.
some of those?
Well, that was very good, Peter, especially that Revolution Imager. I've heard of it, but I didn't know it was that inexpensive and that it was that efficient. So make
It's
sure to,
amazing.
yeah. Okay, so that's things people can access. Now, just to know kind of the ultimate of this type of thing, there is a new telescope we're building down in Chile called, they renamed it to the Vera Rubin telescope, which is nice to honor her, the first person that was talking about dark matter and stuff way back in the 70s. The other name was the Large Synoptic Sky Survey Telescope. So this has an 8.4-meter mirror, one single mirror. It's the biggest CCD camera in the world, over 3 billion pixels. And it's going to do a complete sky survey every 3 nights with 20 terabytes of data. And it's going to do this for 10 years. So we'll have a three-dimensional image of mapping the Milky Way, planets, stars, everything around us, just, you know, to the 10th x millionth degree of what any one of us or even the old sky surveys could do. This is all going to start running in about 2 or 3 more years. So that's something to look forward to.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
8 point, how many meters?
8.4 meters.
All right.
Yeah. And the biggest CCD camera is so, you know, millions of times more sensitive than anything we could buy for any amount of money, probably, for that matter.
Yeah.
And up at it's going to be up at 9,000 feet. So it'll have a perfect clear sky. It rains 1 inch there every century. So clear skies every single night, guaranteed. We're going to see the whole galaxy in like 3-dimensional. It'll just be amazing.
Well, it sounds like if they just installed this Revolution Imager too, they wouldn't need.
They put that. Yeah.
Wouldn't need to be.
Yeah, really.
Do that kind of data collection though.
Right.
20 terabytes a night. It's going to have over 500 petabytes of data by the time it's done in 10 years.
Petabytes. That's a new one.
Brilliant bits. Wait, more than we can even imagine. It's going to do this on a regular basis. Yeah.
And the servers for that data must be insane.
Yeah. No, that's some of the big problems. And then they're going to be regular huge optical telescopes too.
Hmm.
One is going to be 39 meters across with almost 1,000 mirrors
Oh my
connected.
God.
And then they have the TMT, the 30-meter telescope. That's a third of a football field. And that has some
Wow.
segments too. And that's optical. So it's not going to do a survey and have a big camera, but it'll have other neat things. And they're already building the, the shed, that where they house the telescopes. Two of them down in Chile, also, and one in Hawaii. And then, we'll learn about dark matter. We'll see other planets visually, see their atmospheres through spectroscopes, learn about dark matter, dark energy, more the beginning of the universe. It'll have adaptive optics, so it'll cancel all the negative effects of the atmosphere, which is what the space telescopes do now. We can do all this from the ground and 20 times better than the Hubble, right from the ground. Yeah. So that's some of
Wow.
the things in the near future. This isn't way off. We'll be around in a few years when all these guys start working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that didn't uninspire you
Hmm?
to pursue astrophotography.
Yeah.
But no, thank you, Peter, for showing us the capabilities with not, needing very fancy equipment. And hopefully you'll be able to share a couple of your photos that we can share with our listeners.
I'll
But
figure out a way.
yeah, we will figure it out a way. And thank you so much for coming on to our show and sharing your experiences and sharing your stories of chasing some of these incredible photos and I guess events that you've been so lucky to be present for.
It's been a pleasure to meet you, Sarah. I hope we get together at the next Starfest, if nothing sooner.
Absolutely. If I know you're going to be there with your Revolution imager and your monitors, I will definitely make the drive down.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Well, you have been listening to Scientifically Speaking here on WMPG with myself, Bernie, and Peter Gillette. Stay tuned for Disco Jams with Jam Lewis, and from your favorite nerds, just a reminder to vaccinate, to mitigate, and then we can all congregate.